Welcome back, everybody, to another Kuta worksheet tutorial. Today we're doing two-step inequalities. Hopefully you guys can take a second, if you haven't done so already, and watch the first video on how to do inequalities in the Kuta worksheet. We already talked about this in that video. Essentially, this is the kind of the terminology and the symbols we need to understand and interpret. If it's less than or greater than less than, sorry, I got that backwards, we're going to be using parentheses in my class, but you'll probably see this designated as open dots for most people. But it's the same thing. And then we have less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, represented by a closed dot for most people. In my class, we're going to be using brackets. But it means the same thing, okay? Now, let's go ahead and get started. One of the key pieces of information when we're dealing with inequalities, number one, we're going to treat them just like equations. So two-step equations, trying to get the variable by itself. The only difference is this. If we divide or multiply by negative, okay, if we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to flip the sign. That's very important to keep in mind because that will affect our inequality greatly. This is probably the number one mistake I see with these types of problems. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's take on an easy one with number 1 first. Again, we're just treating this like an equal sign. So we're going to go 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 24. Just like an equal sign, what would we do? We would subtract 4 from both sides, if I can write it, and we get 2x is greater than or equal to 20. Divide by 2. Notice how we didn't divide by a negative number, so we get x is greater than or equal to 10. Now we go to the graphing component. This is what the previous video talked about. I can revisit it a little bit. Historically, what you've probably done in the past is you put a dot on 10. It's a dot because it can include the number 10. Okay? It can include the number 10. And then which way do we go? Well, we go to the numbers that are greater than. Here we see that x is greater than, because of this symbol, greater than or equal to 10. So greater than, we're talking about the numbers like 12, 13, 20, 100. These numbers are to the right of 10. Greater than. So if we're talking about the greater than, the numbers to the right, we need to graph an arrow to the right. Now the only difference in my class is instead of drawing a dot, a closed dot, we're going to be drawing a bracket. Bracket does the same thing. See how it lines up right on 10? That's indicating that we include 10, and we're talking about the values to the right, so the bracket faces to the right with the arrow going to the right in that direction also. Okay? Let's move on to number 2. We, again, have a less than or equal to. Okay, so we're going to be using a bracket again. Notice that we're going to be using a bracket. Not sure which one yet, but let's go ahead and find out through this process. We have m over 3 minus 3 less than or equal to negative 6. The first thing I would do is I would multiply all the sides by, both sides, by 3. What does this do for me? Well, it gets rid of this fraction, that denominator. I always like to multiply by the least common denominator, or excuse me, yeah, the least common denominator of the equation or inequality, so I can get rid of that denominator. Once I do that, I will cancel out the 3 with the 3, and I'm left with m. Then I have 3 times 3, which is giving me negative 9, less than or equal to negative 18. I still need to get the m by itself, so I add 9, add 9. Notice how I didn't multiply or divide by a negative number, so I'm leaving it as m is less than or equal to negative 9. How do I graph this? Well, now we're talking about a little bit something different. Last time we had greater than. This time we're going to have less than or equal to. Because it's less than or equal to, I'm going to be using a bracket, okay? But I'm talking about the values that are smaller, so we're talking about negative 10, negative 20, negative 100, okay? Towards negative infinity, that's to the left. So we need to be graphing our arrow to the left. We're going to be starting on negative 9, okay, negative 9, and we're going to be going to the left. Now, I changed my bracket direction because I need to indicate that it's going in the same direction, which is less than, which is to the left. And again, it can be equal to, and that's why we're using the bracket and not a parenthesis. Maybe let's go down to a harder one that's not equal to, let's see. Perhaps we could do, number 12. That one looks challenging enough. Okay, here we have negative 9 plus a over 15 is greater than 1. So let's rewrite it. Over 15 greater than 1. So if we have a greater than symbol, we know we're going to be using a parenthesis this time, as indicated by this little key. All right, so if you want to write the key down, that's great. You can pause it. I'm not going to pause. Okay. First thing I would do, I recognize I have a fraction. I'm going to multiply both sides by 15 to get rid of that. This one makes it super easy. We're going to distribute the 15. Boom, boom. The 15 will be multiplied by the 1 to give you 15. Then we have less than. The 15 cancels with the denominator 15 completely, leaving us with negative 9 plus a. Okay, the a and the 9 look very similar. Be careful. Now we just got a two-step equation, actually one step from here, and we just add 9 to both sides. And we get a is greater than or equal, not equal, sorry, greater than 24. Okay. Now, because it is greater than, we are going to be saying, okay, greater than, we're talking about all the values bigger than 24. It's very important that you do this interpretation in your head. So we are going to the right, okay? We are going to the right. It doesn't matter the positioning of A. Oh, A is on the left, so I graph to the left. It doesn't matter the pointing of this inequality. Oh, it's pointing to the right, I graph to the right. You have to be careful. Don't just have those rules, memorize the rules. Interpret what is it saying. It's saying A is bigger than 24. The values that are bigger than 24 move to the right on the number line. So what we're going to do is we're not going to include 24. A cannot be equal to 24, so we need to exclude it using a parenthesis. You've historically used an open dot. We are going to use a parenthesis, and it looks like that. So going to the right. Some of these other ones are fairly straightforward. I mean, you just need to use some distribution. If there's a fraction, I would multiply it by negative 6. But otherwise, these are not too bad. You should be able to handle these pretty well. I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to call it quits for right now. Hope you enjoyed watching this video, and thank you so much.